What's good, y'all? Gear 4 here, and it's time to talk all about it. So, what exactly is this? What are the different resources? What can we expect? How does it work? All that good stuff. Let's have a look. So, first off, let's move that little test server message out of the way for a while. It's basically a 7-day event in which you can't buy any entries. So, it's a non-whalable, you can't buy yourself any advantages. And what that means is over there we have 150 keys. Per fight you need 1 key and you're limited to 150 keys and you can't buy any keys in any way, shape or form. So everyone has equal chances to play this fight, and the only difference then being what kind of stage you are able to do. So that's first off. Second off, let's go through the particular resources. First off, dungeon crystals. The mysterious crystal obtained in the gear dungeon. It can be used in the dungeon shop. What the hell is the dungeon shop? Here we go. Dungeon shop. So an all new shop with the option to buy auto fights, a gold bonus, a random mythic gear chest. So nothing too special. And then you can buy shards, 5 shards, to then assemble into a smithing hammer, so you can reforge your attributes. But they're really not that good. Then we come into the interesting stuff. Random ancient mythic gear chest. We can get some random ancient mythic gear. And then we already get to the first question mark. What the hell is unidentified gear? Why is it so shiny? And why does it look like a key? So for that we need to go to some more resources, because there's a lot of shit that is actually happening here. Which is why we're going to just go to gear, go to foundry, find 2 new tabs, but we're going to start with the first one, which is going to be another resource you can also get from the gear dungeons, being sanguine fabric and smoldering scales. So we have 2 more new crafting materials. On the note of the crafting materials, you do get a certain amount per stage. So for example, starting from stage 3, you get those materials right here. So starting from stage 3, you get around 20 sanguine fabric and 20 smoldering scales. Now, to be fair, I am not sure if you do get them every time, and I can't quite tell you, but it basically even doesn't increase. So most likely the rarity goes up, but it's not quite clear how many you get where. Enough of that, and then we can craft stuff. So for crafting, we have left side gear being sanguine fabric, and then right side gear being smoldering scale. For the left side, we have 2 new gear sets. Number 1, Wicked Vengeance. Crit damage plus 40%, attack plus 10%. So it's pretty much just an increased set. As if you would take Annihilating Might and Calamity set and just fuse them together. From 25% attack down to 10, and then increasing the crit damage from 35 to 40. So at least with the way Guild Boss is at the moment and the way stats work and all that, this is a pretty decent set. This is most likely going to find its way into most, if not all, Guild Boss teams on only the strongest characters, at least until we get more of it. Secondly, we have Light's Grace. Healing effect plus 30, rage region plus 10%. So we're finally starting to get more viable healer sets. And in general, honestly, rage region as a stat on gear is quite nice, because it is really hard to get if we're talking left side gear. But I'm not going to keep you up with that too much. Next, we have the 4 sets. They were already in the game, but they've been changed a bit. But in general, we now have 4 more right side sets. Morale. When on the field, all allies deal 4% bonus damage, and it does not stack. So you can just put it on one character, be it Laurel support. For example, you could put it on a Vortex. Vortex is rather tanky, so just put it on a Vortex and everyone's going to do 4% more damage. Next one, Unshaken Will. When deployed, HP plus 20%, so already really good for pretty much all tanks, because we're mainly looking for HP when it comes to tanking stuff. Then when attacked, recovers 5% of max HP, so self-healing, and then triggers up to 1 time every 5 seconds. So every 5 seconds you're going to regenerate 5% max HP, which obviously makes this probably a bona fide prime choice for tanks. Hell's Lament. When the ultimate is triggered, increases damage by 30% and crit damage by 40%, lasting for 8 seconds. Now that is rather interesting. It's kind of like a wisdom set that increases your damage by 20 by your damage after an ultimate, but it also adds crit damage on top, but lasts 2 seconds less. So this is definitely going to be a huge burst window for 8 seconds, but it's obviously questionable how effective it is outside of those 8 seconds. And then last but not least, Tempered Will, damage reduction 15%. Obviously damage reduction being a highly valued stat and just honestly quite crucial for any kind of tank. And then for each enemy blocked, increases defense by 5%, stacking up to 4 times, so a total of 20% defense. And that's not it. That's not all. We now also have the Identify tab. So what is Valkyria explaining here is, after identifying, you will obtain variant gear with a special effect. Change the gear dungeon for more powerful gear. So you get gear that is kind of getting an extra set effect on top of the set effect that does special things. And honestly, that is super exciting. Let me see if we can actually find something here. No, we can't. So pretty much you can imagine this as gear with 2 set effects. And one of them being honestly really special. Obviously, we're going to go over all that gear, how it looks, what it can do, examples, a separate time. But for the moment, let's just have a look at what we're dealing with. Because this is still not quite it, but we're getting there. So right here, we then have the Unidentified Bangle, which is the same shenanigan. You put it into the smithy, you identify it, and it gets 2 set effects. Number 1, its normal set effect, and number 2, the special set effect that works outside of the set effect, if that makes sense. And then let's get into the shop again. For the rest is then rather simple, just some more crafting materials, a set that has a specific set. So, for example, Ancient Tempered Will Bangle, which is the Tempered Will set we've already talked about, then just a normal Ancient Infernal Roar, and then we have an Unidentified Fine Bangle unearthed from the dungeon, which is basically a bangle with a different set and a special set effect that you need to identify. But you need to reach stage 6 to even be able to buy it. Alright, that was a lot of shit, but let's have a further look what else is there. So for the stages, let's have a look at the first fight. Halls of Defilement. We have 6 stages, and you can kind of already see it from the text that the first stage is different to the second and third, and then the fourth and fifth, and it's basically the second, the first is off to itself, then the second and third are basically their own things, then the fourth and the fifth, with the fifth being a bit stronger than the fourth, and then the sixth being kind of like the fifth, but endgame. But basically, there's a lot of stuff to talk about, and let's just have a look at the first stage. Our opponent is Volker, but it is a reskinned Volker, so in this case, purple Volker. And she's the Insatiable Blood Mistress. Monster skills, immunity to all CC effects except slow. Blood Banquet, prioritizes attacking defenders 1 time. And then Empress Banquet applies life steal to all monsters, restoring 15% of their max HP every time they attack. And then we just have a lot of other enemies. So new stages, new stuff, nothing recycled. Full on new blast. And one thing we need to talk about still. Monster core mechanics. Monster core mechanics. So, monster core mechanic wise, we have on the first stage nothing, and then on the second stage, physical damage immunity. So, the enemy, Twisted Sycophant, greatly reduces their physical damage received. Obviously, we could then go into guides, go into map info, figure out that the Twisted Sycophant kind of looks like Theowin, and this guy is then going to take greatly reduced physical damage. On the third stage, you still only have a single debuff. On the fourth stage, it turns into 3 debuffs, which is going to give control immunity to the Twisted Sycophants, again the Theowin looking dudes, for all CC effects except slow. And then we have enhanced recuperation, doubling the healing received by the Twisted Sycophant. For the fifth one, we get invisibility. So Torment and Banshee, another of those enemies, then gain invisibility and can't be targeted, which is probably them needing to be blocked to get targeted. And then lastly, the fifth stage apparently doesn't gain any monster core mechanics, but is just going to be stronger. So if you take a look at the BP for stage 1 is going to be 473,000. So it's definitely it's around the level of chapter 9, kind of, if a bit lower. And the requirements to actually unlock Gear Dungeon are going to be having every gear rate on stage 18. So that's kind of where you need to go from. Then we get a jump of around 80k to the second stage, a total of 150k to the third, the additional 30 on top, so 180k to the fourth. The sixth one is already 700,000, and the fifth one and the sixth one is going to be 722,000. Now, just so we can get kind of like a comparison, let's have a look at gear rate stage 21, and we're going to see we have around 737,000. So gear rate 4 should be equal to around, so gear rate 4 stage 6 should be equal to around the gear rate stage 21. So now that we've talked about all this shit, what are my plans for this? Obviously, we have this dungeon crystal. Now the question is, how much of those dungeon crystals can we get? How much does everything in the shop even cost? What kind of jobs can we even expect? And how difficult are those stages? So that is what I'm going to get myself to. So I'm going to grind it out, have a look, try to clear everything, potentially already figure out what exactly we're going to be looking for hero-wise when it comes to stages. Preferably the higher stages, so 4, 5, and 6. And that's what we're going to see in the next video. And that is going to be clearing all our 150 attempts. Hopefully clearing 5 times up to stage 5. So down to 145. And then just running 145 runs of stage 6. Having a look at the loot. Figuring out what we got. And then getting our bearings together. Because this is exciting. So yeah, that's been for this video. Stay tuned for the next one. It's going to be tomorrow or the day after at the latest. And also my Boreas review still hasn't been green lighted. So whenever that one comes, it comes. On that note, appreciate you watching, and we see each other in the next one.